Hello and welcome to
Hello.
the Quantum Bridge. I'll let Gary do the intros, Iris. But just to say for everybody coming on, we have a new guest, and I've somewhat spoilt that by saying a name, but then it's behind you anyway. So over to Gary to say hello properly and get us all started.
Hello properly. And welcome to the show, Iris. Are you doing well today?
Yes, I'm doing good. Thank you.
Excellent. So we found you got introduced to us via Valerie that we had on the show, who was also from Singapore, but left, and she did an account about her traveling sign.
Yeah.
And she said you might wish to join us as well. So here you are. So I think maybe we'll start with, you're still in Singapore, correct?
Yes.
Excellent.
I haven't got my passport. It's with the police.
Right, we'll get on to that. So maybe for our audience, you give us a little bit of background about yourself and maybe what life is like or was like in Singapore pre-2020. I mean, as a society, is it fairly open or is it quite restrictive anyway before that?
Okay, well, I'm from Singapore. It's some people call it the Switzerland of the East. We are very modern. It's a financial hub. I mean, we are well-to-do country. Everybody has almost like a flat that owns, that costs at least $500,000, you know. So we are a very prosperous country. And prior to 2020, I was working as a musician and an entrepreneur. I also a concert organizer. So I was actually organizing concerts for the Vienna Boys Choir, okay, in Singapore as well as in Bangkok for 2 years, and worked as a musical theatre director, a choral conductor. I teach singing, piano. The so I have a normal life, so to speak. That was pre-2020, and it's a very it's an Asian society. So I say that because it would maybe unimaginable to think that there are certain topics that would be taboo. We have some laws in Singapore, like the POFMA law. It's called the Protection from the Online Falsehood and Harassment Act. And during Lee Kuan Yew's regime, he was the former prime minister before the current prime minister. Okay.
Excuse me.
Um, I would say he governed the country with very strong iron fist. And basically you know there were some lawyers, there were some descendants who had to leave the country, like Francis Xiao was one of the lawyers. He was the head of the law society, but because he was speaking up for certain issues, and then he had to leave the country. Forced to leave, you know. And there are many people. So I would say that over the years, and even okay, we can't even have a protest. To do a protest in Singapore, we got to go to a special park called the Hong Lim Park. All right, that's where we can do our, and you have to apply for permission before you ever protest. A congregation of one holding a ply card, you can be charged for that and go to jail. There are people, I can send you links to that. Like for example, there are some people, okay. Um uh what's his name? His name is jo 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 Jolovan Wham. Okay, he's one of the people who has been protesting about this. So it is, as you can see, our free speech is not really free. Speaking is not really free. All right. So, and it's governed very tightly, okay, by the government. Like I say, you have to apply for a permit to talk about issues at the Hong Lim Park. And during COVID, the Hong Lim Park was closed. All right, so it was closed because they did not allow. They say, oh, the virus is going to spread to people. That's why you can't gather, and we couldn't even have any public protests. Okay, for almost 2 years. Okay, so I had to do so it's very, very restricted. And then of course the mainstream media, uh there's not much freedom of press as well, because I would say that it is not independent, so to speak, because a lot of the is funded by taxpayers' money. Okay, $900 million goes to fund our media, the SPH Media Trust. Okay, and so you can imagine the climate of free speech and the climate of free information and the climate of I would say discourse. You have to be careful what you say. In fact, now when I'm talking to you, I have to think very hard what I can say, what I can't say.
Yeah, we can feel that. And we don't blame you, actually. I don't know how you feel about this, Iris, but even in the West, and I can only really speak for the UK, but I've travelled quite a lot and travelled in the East as well to some degree. But talking from a Western perspective, there's always been this notion that we have free speech. I'm not so sure that in my lifetime I've ever really had, or we in the UK have really had free speech, because even if it wasn't as bad as being thrown in prison or killed or all these horrendous things that can happen, certainly that sort of the consensus reality would mean that you're ridiculed. So if you do step outside a very narrow paradigm and start questioning things and so on, actually not very pleasant things would happen to you even before the last few years. I don't know how you feel about that, or whether you've travelled as well, but I get this sense that this notion of free speech is pretty much, or has been always, in our lifetimes at least, a notion more than a truth.
Well, I would say, I mean, on the opposite side of freedom is responsibility, and I think that, you know, as a I would say we always have to balance, you know, saying things freely as well as being responsible in what we say, so that we do not necessarily like defame people or spread misinformation and so forth. But if you talk about truth can't be arrived if there's no freedom of speech. You know, if the reason why, or the, you know, what happened in the last 3 years, basically with the scamdemic, the pandemic, is because there's been a huge censorship of speech, you know, by even doctors, scientists, those who didn't you know, follow the mainstream narrative. All right, they had their freedom removed, and as a result, we the public didn't get the truth that we needed to make the informed decision for ourselves. You know, I would say that in a general sense, okay, I'm also the victim of press, you know, defaming us. So that's why I'm also, so I just want to say that freedom has to be tied together with responsibility, that we say things that has got proof, that's backing, and then we are like making sure that, you know, if it's our opinion, we make it sure that it is our so-called opinion, and that it is not, and I think that we should be allowed to think freely for ourselves, you know, and the thing is that, but of course we are kind of worried as well that the freedom of thought is even going to be controlled at some point. You know, we are coming to that stage where, you know, they're gonna hook wires out, they can read into our minds and so forth, and to see into the thoughts of people. I mean, that would become a really, really scary reality if humanity ever reaches that place, you know. So, but I think as a human race, one of the things that we should always uphold and preserve is the dignity of our thoughts, it's the dignity of our speech, and the ability to think and speak freely, you know, with, I mean, responsibly, of course, but without that, we can never arrive at truth. And without truth, then what is society based on? Are we based on the power of lies, or just propaganda, or just, you know, like, yeah.
Well, it seems so.
Yeah.
So that's very sad. That's going to be a very sad reality for everybody, okay? Because if you look at all the scientific, you know, the way that that science, verifies truth is because there is there's differing opinions, with different facts and being presented. That's how humanity, like, gets to the bottom of truth, or at least what we think is the truth at that point, until more data comes, and then we can have a new way.
Well, that seemed that it was the case, that there was a dialectic that happened. There was some level of, whether again it really was truly open debate, I don't know. I think my own jury is out on that. But it certainly, we had the facade that there was debate that led to some level of, I don't know, this antithesis and the synthesis and all these other words, that leading to a point of sort of, in time, of revelation, as you say, at that moment, a moment of truth. But I'm not so sure. The more I look back on, certainly I can only speak for my own life, but the more I look back on my life, the more I actually think that all that the last few years did and continuing to do is to shine an ever brighter light on the fact that actually these things that certainly, again, in the West, we took for granted were not so, actually. So I'm really just saying, it sounds like it's always been felt quite, well, the Swiss thing is probably quite a good analogy, actually. So it's felt quite controlled where you are, but I'm not sure that we were much more open either. So I'm just saying that I think the whole world is having a revealing moment where it's being shown that actually what we thought we were living in, that paradigm of a certain level of freedom, I'm not so certain that was true anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always flip side, in the really, last 3 years was horrific, and I think that, I've seen a lot of videos coming from the West of protests and all that, you will never see that here in Singapore.
Was there not much of a pushback then, Iris? Obviously, we know of yourself and Valerie, but how was the public conception? Was there much of a, like you say, protesting or speaking out?
Well, I did whatever that I could. I did Zoom events. Okay, that was I did Zoom events very intensely, sometimes 2-3 times a month, and I started, my first one was August 9th, which is our National Day 2021. Okay, that was the first one that in that year, our National Day parade was postponed for the first time in our nation's history. So that was pretty because of the pandemic. Can you imagine? And
yes,
we actually had a very low death rate, all right, due to the pandemic. 2020, I believe less than 20 people died. Okay, but somehow the government decided it was some kind of crisis that everybody needed to be vaccinated. Okay, so that is where all hell broke loose. And in fact, back in 2020, I was also under the perception, I didn't realize what was happening. I actually bought their narrative that, okay, COVID is something scary. That's why everybody had to lock
Oh,
down.
really? That's interesting to know that at that time you were sort of on board, so to speak.
Yes, I only started sensing something was different in 2021. Okay, when the vaccine program started rolling out, and had 3 people close to me that I observed, okay, who died suddenly after taking the vaccines. I will call them the vaccines because I will refuse to call them by the name that they want us to call, which is vaccines. They're not even vaccines in the first place. Okay, they've changed the definition of what a vaccine is. Okay, so basically I had 3 person who died, okay, by July 2021. And that was when I decided I could no longer keep quiet. I have to say something. And that was when the government was coming down hard on the mandates. Okay, like if you're not vaccinated, you cannot go to the restaurant. It started with that first. Then it started with, okay, you can't, then there were more and more places that you couldn't go. At first it was the mall, then it was even the hawker center. You can't sit at the hawker center, in my own country, to have a drink, to have coffee, to eat a meal. Okay, And then after that, it was jobs. Then it came after the jobs, and it just got worse and worse and worse.
And what was the reaction? Were a lot of people holding out? Was there the sense that this felt like it was an agenda being pushed rather than just something to do with looking after everybody? How I know it was hard because many of us were isolated and we weren't necessarily speaking with each other or meeting and whatever. So how was that? The sense that you were picking up as things rolled on? Was there a lot of unseen and unheard dissent and pushback, or did most people just say, well, there's nothing we can do, we've got to go along with it?
Well, okay, it's a very good question. So the moment I started speaking up, and it was just on my Facebook, okay, so I just started speaking up. That was before Facebook shadow banned me. Now my Facebook is like almost dead because they just won't show my feed to anybody. Okay, so but basically, and when I started making some posts, it went quite viral, and then I responded to a high profile diplomat, okay, who was asking people to be, and was saying that all the people who don't want to be vaccinated, they should be punished, they shouldn't be allowed to go to the mall, supermarket, and so forth. I responded to him, okay, and then it went viral, okay, and everybody started coming to me. Iris, what should we do? I don't want to be vaccinated too. Blah 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 blah. You know, everybody just started coming to me, and then I said, okay, and I said, I really don't know. I mean, am I the solution? I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Thrown
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
I mean, in the
I'm
end, we're our own
activist.
solution, aren't we? So that's a difficult position to be thrust into, Iris.
Yeah, and after that, the next day, the government did exactly what this guy said the government should do, and they did exactly that. Okay, and I was shocked. Okay, and I just stood and I just sat at the computer and I typed out the first petition. Okay, I think it was I really don't know how it happened because it all happened so fast. Okay, and it was like downloaded to me. I just typed.
Yeah.
I just typed,
Yeah.
type like a dictation. I just type it out, and then it went viral, and then 15,000 people signed it. Okay, and then the next thing I know, it's like everybody is coming to me. Iris, what shall we do? I also don't want to take, and more people were coming to me. I said, okay, I really don't know, but I think we've got to do something, and that's when I organized the first Zoom event. So I gathered some of the other people who felt strongly about the situation and had something to say, and they wanted to present. And we did our first Zoom event. It was really scary, okay, because I don't know whether I was going to get in trouble with the law, the government's going to come and look for me, the police or whatever. I really didn't know, okay, but I just went ahead and I just did it. And then the next thing I know, I had a Telegram group, okay, and then like I say, I'm an accidental activist. I'm suddenly thrown into the whole situation, and then the rest, I.
It's interesting though that in that way, like we're saying, everyone was sort of isolated, but then when you had something and people saw an opportunity to actually come together, that actually was quite a lot of support for what you were saying. Yeah.
Yes, and I think, you see, and I always, my group is called Healing the Divide, because I know that, it is, at that point, I felt really strongly that they wanted to use labels to divide us. You are unvaccinated, you are vaccinated, you are this, you are that, I mean, since when is vaccination a status? Okay, so that was the title of my petition, Don't Let Vaccination Status Divide Us. That was my first petition. And I realized that, okay, there's all these labels and there's all these and people were feeling very strongly about the vaccination issues, right? So those who really, really for it, they felt very strongly that the rest should go along and just do it so that we can go back to a normal life. That was the narrative that was pushed, and it made us look as if we are the guilty ones, that because of us, life couldn't go back to normal, but we are saying, oh my, I mean, and that was when I started going down the rabbit hole, and I realized, oh my goodness, they were even going to force us to take this experimental injection that was not even proven anything. Okay, so that means the agenda is really bad, because why would you do that otherwise? What is the real agenda behind all this? And that's when I started going down the rabbit hole, and I started realizing that this is deeper and worse and I felt the first time all the conspiracy theories are right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want depopulation.
Well, it would be nice. It would be nice if they were wrong. I mean, it'd be good.
Yeah, actually, we wanted them to be wrong. Yeah. Yeah. I want myself to be wrong. I
Yes.
remember somebody saying to me recently, "Why are you so convinced you're right?" And I thought, because I really want to be wrong.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And as I started doing the Telegram chat, okay, other people contributed content and information and all these videos and all these links from everywhere. And if I'm reading through that, I'm like, there's no way, okay? There's no way I'm taking this freaking thing. Okay, there's no way that this is not harmful. There's no way.
Iris, it's amazing to me that you would have to go through all of these things on a very condensed time. I came to this sort of material and was involved in publishing books about sort of different aspects of sort of the hidden masters controlling our fate and whatever. A lot of stuff back in the early 2000s and maybe even some stuff back in the 90s. So for me, the idea that in the midst of this turmoil, one, you became this go-to person, and secondly, you sort of have to have your dark night of the soul as well. I mean, hats off to you. I mean, this is no, I'm not saying it should be easy, but it's no easy journey you've had.
Okay, so let me, I would say that, okay, so actually my entrance into all this is actually started with my mom, okay? She died in 1993 from cancer.
Right.
Okay, she was 42, I was 17, okay? And since then, and I had a health scare when in my early 20s. We have a tumor in my jaw, okay? And then I thought I was dying because I said, oh my goodness, I may be having cancer too. I mean, she died of cancer, and
Yeah.
and at that time I had this health scare, and that's when I went into and I started learning about the pharmaceutical industry. I started learning about how the doctors may not actually know everything because they study drugs, they don't study natural medicine. Okay, and that's when I read a lot of books about what your doctor doesn't know about nutritional medicine may be killing you, and I learned all the about the big pharma complex and everything. Okay, so I
Right.
had that
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
background for 20 years. Okay, I had that as a background. So when they rolled out all the vaccines, okay, vaccines, okay, I was a bit skeptical. Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't. I mean, but do bear in mind, in 2020, I thought that the pandemic was real, okay, and that all these people were dying, and that we needed to do something, okay. So I was still there until they started pushing out the vaccines, and then I was going like, okay, this is not right. Okay, something, it feels very fishy. Something is not quite right. But because I was already not really trusting the pharmaceutical industry, so
Yeah.
I just like, let's wait and see. But when I had three person next to me, like around me, died suddenly, then I said, okay, no. So because of that, I would say that is, I mean, but about other things, the cabal and everything, okay, all those, that whole world.
I don't know what
only
you're talking
No,
about.
no.
Obviously, I've got no idea what you're.
Okay, let me say I don't know whether it's true or not, but in my own personal experience, okay, you got to know I'm going to tell you my 666 story.
We're open to anything. I think we've moved from the YouTube scenario into the Rumble scenario with you anyway.
Yeah.
So, but at this point, say whatever the hell you like.
I think on as we start, we always run out of time on these shows. We've got about 8 minutes left, so but I'd like to sort of get into. So you had a lot of support from the public or the people around you, but not so much from the government, like we found out at the start here with your passport. So maybe we'll go into how that situation evolved and where you're at now with things. Yeah.
Okay, so I was arrested on the 21st of January 2021. Okay, they were investigating me for I mean, basically they have charged me for conspiring with a doctor to give fake vaccination certificates to people. I maintain that I'm innocent, okay, and I didn't do it. Okay, so now it is under a pre-trial conference stage. They're still trying to find evidence, I suppose, to move the trial along. It's not anywhere near. I don't think so. Okay, so that is still, but I was in remand for 15 days. Okay, so I was in remand for 15 days, and when I came out of remand, I said I'm going to write my book, Into the Lion's Den. Into the Lion's Den. Okay. The 666 story I wanted to tell you is actually when I was admitted to SGH. I was in the Singapore General Hospital because I was actually not well. I was traumatized, in the whole 15 days when I was inside. But one of the days I actually had to go to Singapore General Hospital because I had really strong heart palpitation. Okay. Later I'm currently a thyroid cancer patient, because it was through that incident I realized, through subsequent visit to the hospital, I realized that actually I have a tumor in my thyroid, which but I believe it's under control right now. It's not anything very serious yet. Okay, even though the doctor wanted to have surgery and so forth, I'm not going for any of the pharmaceutical solutions, obviously. Okay, so anyway, so I was in I'm thinking which part I should tell you. Okay, let me tell you the juicy part.
Yeah, go for that.
Okay, so I was actually on the day that this was not at the beginning of my 15 days, somewhere in the middle, towards the end, maybe let me see, maybe day 5 or 6, I went to SGH. Okay, so obviously the doctor took my blood test and everything. Okay, and obviously it showed that I wasn't good. Okay, I have thyroid cancer, just remember. So I have other issues as well, like Graves' disease, which is a thyroid conditions that can actually affect my heart palpitation. Okay, so my blood work was not good. Okay, but the police insisted on removing me from the hospital that day. Okay, so they came and then they said, you have to go back, you have to come out, we are taking you back. Okay, and I had to shout. I basically shouted in the entire ward. I said, I'm not going I'm not going back. Okay, I'm not well, I'm staying here. And I said, I'm just about to expose the biggest criminal conspiracy, the COVID-19 vaccine, and MOH wants to silence me. Then I asked the police officer, there are two, one male and one female. I said, why are you wearing gloves? Okay, the female officer she put on her black leather gloves in front of me, and her eyes were not blinking. Okay, and the other male officer, he put on blue surgical gloves. I said, why are you wearing gloves? Are you putting on your gloves so that you could remove your fingerprints and commit the perfect crime? Then I look at the CCTV. I said, this is going to be the next crime scene. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, I'll just for the record, I'll just say that this is what I said. I'm not saying that really they have an intention to kill me, but I can only say that after I said that, they were all stunned and they didn't do anything. Okay, and I was allowed to stay in the hospital because maybe I shouted too loud and some of the doctors started running out of the room.
It was very un-Singaporean of you by the sound of it.
It was. And later on I found out from my friend, he said, wow, one in leather gloves, one in blue gloves. Sounds like the blue one was supposed to help to clean up the mess after the black gloves. I was like, and it really, I felt a shiver down my spine.
Yeah. If you intuitively knew something, then yeah.
No, and I actually confronted the police officer. I wouldn't say his name. I just said, okay, his name starts with B. I said, B. I said, how could you guys...
You're not going to make us have to beep our first ever video, are we?
Sorry, what? Yeah, so this is an excerpt from my book lah. Then after that, when they allowed me to stay in the hospital, okay, this is 666 part, okay. Then I asked the nurse, I said, so which ward am I going to? And then the nurse said, you're going to ward 66.
Bed 6.
66, okay. Then I said, shit. I said, which bed? That room 11, bed 4. So 1 + 1 + 4 is 6. And I said, I'm not sleeping on the 666 bed. The moment I said that, okay, the female officer, the police officer, okay, started talking to the nurse, okay, and they started discussing. and I scolded her. I said, "Why are you discussing my bed with him, the male nurse? Aren't you guys supposed to do your job independently?" Okay, and then she just kept quiet. Okay, she obviously had some instructions from above to put me in that bed. Okay, and technically they are not supposed to discuss with each other where the hell I'm going to, because the nurse is under the hospital. They should be doing their job independently. So why am I supposed to go to a 666 bed? And I just said, I'm not sleeping on the freaking 666 bed. You don't think that I know this thing? Then I told
So
her,
it would have been your 6th bed and your sick bed. Yeah. Not the bed you wanted.
Ritual on me, you know. Maybe they were gonna do some remote ritual on me. Anyway, I said, I'm a Catholic. I'm not sleeping on the 666 bed. I begged the nurse. I said, look, I'm a Catholic, please. You know, in the Bible, 666 is the mark of the beast, and I really don't want to be on that. Then I said, but there are no beds left. Then I said, then I'll sleep on the floor. I said, give me a floor, I'll sleep on the freaking floor, okay? Because when I'm in remand, I sleep on the floor, okay? So then after that,
On that note, Iris, I think Gary's nervously there, going to have to wrap up. Yeah. Iris, come back and talk to us about your book, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the reason why I haven't released it yet is because I'm afraid of certain, you know, sub judice stuff, because I am still, you know, there is
of course. Yeah. But do consider that. I think we're going to get cut off, so we're going to say goodbye for now. Yeah. We'd love you to come back. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us, Iris.
We'll wish you well with your health, and
and we absolutely.
Yeah, we thank you for everything you're doing, all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Iris.
And Caspar, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.